Okay, so we're here to talk about the fairly new Voigtlander 35mm apochromatic lens designed for the Leica M mount. So, like I said, this is a fairly new product, not yet widely available. So I figured doing this lens review slash impressions will provide some insights on somebody who's looking to buy this lens for their use. So this lens is also available in the Sony lens E-mount, but unlike the 50mm APO, which I also have right here for comparison later on, the lens design for the Voigtlander for the VM and E-mounts are actually the same, in contrast with the 50mm, where the VM mount is a slightly different design from the E-mount, I guess, to fully optimize take full advantage of the mount itself. But coming back to this lens, as you can see, by looking at the lens itself, it's a very, very well made lens. It's just like most of the lenses in the Apple Lanthar series that they have. I would say, having owned the Zeiss, Cosina made Zeiss lenses in the past, specifically the 35 and the 35 Biogon and the 50 planar ZM. This is a step above compared to those lenses. They're fairly hefty, and you can probably tell there's unlike the Chinese counterparts that you can probably buy nowadays, there's like much attention to the details, not only in the construction but in the design itself. You can see that if you look at the lens here, right? I'm not sure, but at least you can probably tell that there's like some lens design language that was implemented here. The font is the same across all, the Voigtlander lenses that I've owned in the past. So you can probably see in this video that there's no indication at all that this is like mass produced. There's even the lens caps itself has there's nothing there to no like sharp edges or anything like that, and even the lens cap that came with it is very well made, and it has the middle pinch cap and the classic Voigtlander logo design in the front. And so yeah, construction wise, considering the price that it's asking for, it's a very well made lens, and it's although the jury's still out there, I would argue that this will probably last a long time if it's to be compared against the other Voigtlander lenses in the same Apple Lanthar series. So you're probably asking why this is a big deal, right? So as you know, it's Leica has also released a similar lens, like a 35mm APO lens. So what is an APO, you might be asking? I'm gonna try to explain it in terms that I without getting too technical about it, because I'm not going to pretend I even know the full technical definition of an apochromatic lens. So it's a what they call, like, special lens elements. You probably heard of a spherical element. This is a variant of an spherical element. It is known by other names, like in Nikon they call it ED lenses or super ED lenses, and with Canon they call it the ultra low dispersion glass. So what it does is that the design, in addition to the usual contributing to the sharpness and making sure that the lens veiling is kept to a minimum, it also prevents in controlling loca or longitudinal chromatic aberration. So the color fringing, like the purple and green colors when on the autofocus area. So that's what it's designed to do. So it again, so it's because of that aspect alone, that's why this is a very expensive lens. So the other thing that we need to mention here is that the other thing that's a big deal about this lens design is the floating lens element, or the FLE for short. Like compared to the other Voigtlander lenses, the cheaper ones, right? While they have spherical lenses or even like wider aperture, they're cheaper not because they're like inferior made lenses, because in my experience, Voigtlander are generally well made and generally well designed. But the FLE aspect of the lens is what also separates this lens from all the others, right? Why? Because like with an FLE, it means that the sharpness of the lens, regardless of the focusing distance, will remain consistent. So at wide aperture, whether you're focusing at like the minimum focus distance or anything that's far away, you're guaranteed that the sharpness will be consistent because of that floating element. Speaking of the close focus aspect, so this is close focuses to up to 0.5 centimeter. All right, so up 0.5 meters. So, which is, I guess, for something like Sony, it's probably a big deal. But for a rangefinder user like me, like I use this on an M9, it's kind of doesn't really bring too much value, because the rangefinder can only focus up to 0.7 meter at the closest focusing distance. So anything shorter than that, you cannot even accurately focus using the rangefinder. Which I guess I need to segue a little bit on, like, compare that to the 35mm APO that Leica recently introduced. That one has even like a shorter focusing distance of 30 centimeters, I think. So which kind of, I guess, segue a little bit with it. And Leica announced also that there'll be more lenses that will have even short, like that has similar short minimum focusing distance, which leads me to believe that the next rangefinder, the M11 or the M12 probably after that, will probably, and don't put this, take it with a grain of salt, is that they'll probably either abandon, go with a hybrid rangefinder, kind of like what you find in Fuji X Pro series. Either that, or they might go full electronic rangefinder, which in my opinion is kind of a shame, because it'll be an end of an era, so to speak. Because the in my opinion, the appeal of the M series is of the rangefinder. If you lose that, to me it's like, might as well just stick with something like any of the mirrorless offering that's available today. But then again, it kind of makes sense to move away from the rangefinder, because let's face it, the rangefinder is not built for to be able to granularly focus on anything, especially with like high megapixel count cameras. Like, remember, the M10R is now at 40 megapixel, so you can't really it becomes more of a challenge to focus on with wide aperture lenses and the rangefinder, right? But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So again, back to this lens. It focuses 0.5 meters, but it brings no value for something like M9 that has no EVF or live view focusing. I mean, so, but take that as what you will. Now, so compared to the other APO lens, okay, right? So let's just take this off. I mean, size-wise, it's surprisingly about the same, except the 35 is actually a wee bit longer, probably a few millimeters, I think. This even has like a I have a filter on this one, so this is what you're comparing. This is the 50 and this is the 35. You can see that the 50 is shorter. Yeah, this is the shortest it can go. But again, the design is, I mean, I don't know, I know it probably doesn't, some users don't care, but I do care about it. The design is consistent, which is kind of nice of Cosina to do so with their Lanthar series of lenses. Now, compared to the, so okay, let's just mount this one back to some, oh wait, no, actually, let me just, because I needed to compare with the other lens that I have. This is the Leica Sumilux 35 1.4 FLE, right? So I've had this for quite a while. This is my main 35mm lens for a long time until I got this one. So as you can see, without the hood, they're about this, the Leica is actually shorter, but the footprint is it's somewhat fatter than the Voigtlander. So, but performance wise, I mean, a Leica is a Leica, right? It's at f2, you, this one, the Leica will have better transmission than the Voigtlander. But as you will see, I mean, if you look at the description below, I have the link to my Flickr account, so you can compare. I mean, I've been uploading sample pictures from the APO 35 with the M9, and then how it compares with the Leica 35 millimeter. So I mean, value for, like, you know, if you're gonna, like, you know, judge the Voigtlander based on merit alone, I mean, this can, I mean, I've yet to come across a lens that's better. Like, yes, it's still a little over $1,000, which doesn't come with a hood, by the way, one of the annoying aspects of it, but that's fine. Compared to anything that's out there, like, you know, the feature, the APO element, and the floating lens element design, and like being sharp from wide open, is nothing really compares. Like, you know, again, I've owned the Zeiss in the past. Like, you know, if you're judging on like you know, the sharpness, I would say the Voigtlander is still better. The only reason you would probably choose a Zeiss over this one is probably the lens character that of the picture that it produces. But other than that, like, you know, pound for pound, this is probably a better bike. Now, compared to the Leica, I mean, it's you can't really make a decision, in my opinion, because, like, if you want a Leica, you'll buy a Leica. I mean, it doesn't. I think for a lot of people, it doesn't really matter if this performs better than the Leica at any aperture. So I'm not even going to go there. So, so I guess that's the long and short of it. If you're looking to buy this one, it's well worth it. Like, you know, if you're going to buy a Voigtlander 35 millimeter lens and you don't need anything higher aperture than the f2.0, I'd go with this one, because anything else would probably pale in comparison. I'll probably have a separate review of this one, because it's easier to procrastinate than do any video on anything really. But, like, you know, if you're looking for an APO lens for the Leica mount, like an APO lens with floating lens element design, I mean, really, there's not a lot of choices out there other than the Leica brand lenses itself. But for 50 millimeter, I mean, this is the only other true alternative to a Leica lens. But again, that's, I guess, topic for another video. So yeah, there you go, Voigtlander 35 millimeter. If you're looking to buy one, I'd say, if you, based on what I've described and based on probably the photos that on my Flickr account, there you go, make a decision.